Welcome to Ring of Fire. I'm Mike Papantonio. Coming up on today's show, we'll tell you how the government's actions with the Bundy Ranch standoff have given extremists a green light to take on federal agents with AK-47s. And we'll tell you why the Obama administration has done absolutely nothing to prevent another BP oil spill disaster. And corporations, well, they're trying to use Facebook to limit your ability to sue them. We'll give you the details on that story. We have all that and more coming up, but right now, just remember, you've stepped into the Ring of Fire.
You can't change Washington from the inside. You can only change it from the outside.
Grand jury secrecy rules.
For political gain.
The press can find out.
That has nothing to do with politics, but go ahead.
It wouldn't bother me.
Oops.
The government's reaction to the Bundy Ranch standoff is one that we really have to consider. Did they do the right thing by allowing 1,000 lunatics with AK-47s to back them down? There was nothing noble about these lunatics. There was nothing patriotic. They simply were a group of 1,000 people completely out of control. I have David Neiwert with me to talk about it. David, sovereign citizens, remnants of the KKK, just about every kind of oddball that could have gathered up in that 1,000 people that were out there in Nevada to stand down the federal government. I bet there were more outstanding warrants in that crowd than we could find in most places in this country. But that is what the federal government is confronted with, is these band of crazies that want to just absolutely not have any organization to the federal government. Isn't that kind of what this is about?
Oh, yeah. That's one of the striking things about, to me, all the coverage of this is that I don't think the mainstream media has really picked up on to explain to the public just how radical these guys really are. That this is a revival of the militia Patriot movement that we saw in the 1990s that, yes, blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City. These folks believe there should be no government. They believe the federal government has no right to control them. This is why you hear Cliven Bundy always saying, well, yeah, I'll pay my taxes to Nevada, but I don't recognize the federal government, even though the federal government, in fact,
owns Nevada. Yeah. Okay. Let me look. Here's what it's almost laughable, except it's so dangerous. I mean, if you went out there with a camera and a microphone, you would see more crazy talk, more moonbat kind of flying monkey talk within the first 5 interviews, and you'd say, well, no, these people are just so crazy, they're never going to be relevant. But unfortunately, corporate media makes them relevant. Corporate media makes it look like these are just, average citizens. They're not average citizens. These people came in from Idaho, California, Montana, Canada, all over the country trying to pick a fight with the federal government. How do you think the federal government handled it?
Well, I think that the federal government made some mistakes early on. I think that the show of force arrived a little too soon. We learned a lot of lessons about dealing with these folks back in the 1990s, and I'm not sure the government remembers all those lessons that it learned, particularly when and how to negotiate with them, and when and how to recognize that the situation is getting out of hand. But at least they did back off, and there was no loss of life, and I'm glad for that. But at the same time, I think that there needed to be. I think they capitulated a little bit too much.
Well, two things about what you said. First of all, there is no rational negotiation with these people. That's the first thing. They've been trying to negotiate with Bundy for 20 years. There's been 3 court orders. They've sat down with him. They've said, look, Mr. Bundy, can't you just pay $1.35 a head? That's when other farmers or other cattlemen are paying $5 to $6 a head per month per cattle to graze on private land. This guy is getting corporate welfare. He owes taxpayers $1 million, probably more. He has $1.5 million worth of cattle out there that will pay off that debt. He's a freeloader. He's a welfare cowboy, and the federal government simply can't just let it go. I mean, we both agree you can't just let it go. If anything, bankrupt this guy, put him in the poorhouse. That's at least something they can do.
Yeah, and there just were other ways that they could have gone about it that could have done it. And I think that they should have recognized that once these folks started bringing the guns, I mean, that's what you need to negotiate, right? You don't need to. I mean, obviously, there's no negotiating his leases or anything like that because the guy doesn't even recognize the federal government as a legitimate leasing entity. So,
you know, David, one thing that you talked about it in your article, the corporate media didn't even pick up on the idea that you had this lunatic ex-sheriff, Richard Mack was his name, and he said, look, one way we can get America ginned up about this is we can put women up in front of the line and hope that the federales will kill one of the women, and if they kill a woman, then we can kill a federale, and it's all going to be justified. That's what that was all about. That's how crazy these people are, isn't it?
Yeah, they were. I mean, I've got him on a video talking about how they wanted to put the women and children in the front so that when the TV cameras came on, that's what America would be seeing was these rogue federal agents killing women and children. Well, the rogue federal agents knew better than that. So, and honestly, that's just how low these people get. And it was such a bizarre thing because, I've hung around with these people quite a bit. And let me tell you, the testosterone flows pretty freely. At gatherings, and that was about the unmanliest thing I think they could have possibly said.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you took a look at it, all you had to do is take a look at this film footage we're showing, and you can see how crazy these people are. Women, men, just lunatics going after the federal government, going after these agents that are out there doing their job, but they were there to kill a federal agent. There was no question in my mind. They're waiting for the opportunity to kill a federal agent who has children at home, has a spouse at home. They just wanted to kill somebody and start this big revolution. In their mind, David, isn't part of the problem. They see this big federal apocalypse right around the corner where at last there's going to be the big war with the federal government and these nut jobs, the survivalists that live in Montana and Nevada and all over the West they're at last going to be able to say, you see, we were right. They start the war and then they say, you see, we were right. Isn't that part of this story?
Yeah, they've been fantasizing about this stuff for a long time. They have their own little literary subgenre of what I call patriot porn, about books that filled with tales of rugged survivalists who managed to survive the meltdown of the economy, and their rugged band of militia patriots lives it out and resurrects America through constitutional principles, as they call it. And their idea, mind you, of constitution is the one that doesn't allow for black slavery, that allows for black slavery and doesn't have a 14th Amendment, a lot of stuff.
No regulations of anything is what they want. Anarchy.
Yeah, they basically want to have the world. Well, they kind of want to have the world the way it was in about 1890.
Yeah. Okay, isn't one way to give these people a chance? It's almost comical. They've got their 9mm strapped on the side. They got their AK-47. Most of them have not even participated in military service. So if they want to shoot their guns, why don't we just, one way to let them go to Afghanistan, but don't let them shoot our federal agents. That's what corporate media, it's almost the corporate media is brain dead about how dangerous this group is. Look, have you seen any stories? I've seen one story that talks about the fact that even the Nevada Cattlemen's Association say, we don't want anything to do with this guy. He's so crazy, we don't want anything to do with him. But what you have the right-wing media trying to do is gin this up, not just in Nevada, but in Utah and all the cattle states, to where they say, we want control of federal land again. We want states to control federal land. And this is just one of those incidents that they can say, you see, this is why we need to control federal land. Isn't that part of it?
Absolutely. Not only that, that's exactly what this is about. There's, in fact, a group of lawmakers meeting in Utah this week to discuss that very issue. And it's all these conservative, very far-right Republicans who are actually very much in bed. It's the Tea Party faction. And let's be frank, the Tea Party has been a huge conduit for a revival of this Patriot militia movement, all under guise in the last 4 years, all under guise of the Tea Party. We've seen a huge revival of these Patriot people. I mean, look at the main faction. One of the main factions that was out there in Nevada was this outfit called Oath Keepers. And
yeah, they should be, exactly. They should be in padded cells. Tell us who they are.
Well, they sell themselves as this outfit that's all about getting law enforcement to uphold their constitutional oaths. But what they're really about is spreading this kind of paranoia about government rounding up people and putting them into concentration camps. I mean, when they say you're supposed to uphold your federal or your constitutional oath, what they're really saying is you're not going to help round people up into concentration camps. And they spread all these conspiracy theories. They're a huge fear-mongering organization. They're really a classic patriot organization that's fearful and paranoid about the supposed New World Order and all of the evil that it's going to bring. And they're tied in very closely, I might add, with Alex Jones and all those conspiracies.
Okay, part of this is that you have part of it's being driven by the same people who have been around this delusional, crazy talk for a long time. One of them is Chuck Baldwin that you talk about. Chuck Baldwin originated right in Pensacola, Florida, where I'm broadcasting from, as a matter of fact. And so Chuck Baldwin has always had this sense of waiting for the big apocalypse. And so the point is, there may only be 1,000 of them out there, but what we see happen in a setting like this, if you see any fascist movement, for example, take a look at fascism wherever it takes place in the world. It always starts out with a handful of really crazy moonbat types. I mean, this is a group of people who believe that Area 51, is still out there, UFOs flying around. They believe that the government was behind 9/11. They believe the government has FEMA concentration camps out there for them. These people are the craziest of the crazy. But the media won't talk about that side of the story. They won't talk about Chuck Baldwin. We knew he's a nut job down here, and now he's moved on.
Well, and that kind of, I think, demonstrates, Mike, to the extent to which these people on the extreme right are actually a terrific lever for these mainstream conservatives to get their issues out there and for them to seem rational when talking about it. Because, that, like I say, we've got these conservative legislators meeting in Utah right this week to talk about taking back Western lands, and they're doing it under the spearhead of this situation in Nevada with Cliven Bundy. And
you wonder whether it was coordinated. You look at it and you wonder whether it was coordinated.
Well, especially the extent to which you actually had Koch brother funded media who were actually supporting this narrative about Cliven Bundy being a
victim,
a good American.
Yeah.
And these were also people, and we also saw and what those of us who've lived in the West, I grew up in southern Idaho. I was an environmental reporter in the West for many years. In fact, that's how I wound up in the business of covering right-wing extremists. And let me tell you, what has been going on for years and years and years and years out in the West is that all this public land that's being protected by the federal government, protected from exploitation, these corporate powers want their hands on that land, want to exploit those resources.
Minerals, timber. Yeah.
They want to have a wide open West so that they can go and rape and ruin it and destroy that landscape as quickly as they can so they can rip everything out. And they're all doing it under the guise of the patriotism of these people.
That's where the Sagebrush Rebellion originated. David Neiwert, thank you for joining me, okay? I really do appreciate it. It's a big story we're going to continue covering, okay?
Thanks a lot, Mike.
David Neiwert's latest book is And Hell Followed With Her.